Hello, my name is Ed Fitzgerald, and I want to welcome you to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us stories about their lives. Our guest today is Janet Smith, a former East Longmeadow resident, and leading our conversation today is Mary Jenowin Kaplan. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Ed, and good morning, Janet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to share stories with us on Stories from the View. I believe you're going to tell stories about your father and your brother. So we are very anxious to hear that. So let's jump right in.
Hi, my name is Janet. This first story is about my father, Raymond G. Adams, Sr. One evening when I was a young girl, my father had a drinking buddy at the house. My father asked me if what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to help people. My father then told me to get his war books. There were 2 volumes that we kept in the living room on the library table. The War in Europe and the War in the Pacific. My father would say, "So you want to be a nurse? Looks like you'll be joining the army to be a nurse." He would then open the volume about the war in Europe and tell me that this is what I would be dealing with. The pictures were terrifying. I jumped off his lap in tears. This is pretty much what I knew about World War II. We as a family never talked about the war, but we all lived it. My father did tell us from time to time that he loved us. My father was a private in the Army. He was awarded the Purple Heart, and as far as I knew, it was due to being hit with shrapnel. As kids, we would admire the medal as it sat in the top drawer of his dresser. Raymond Sr. was stationed in Normandy. It must have been a very horrible place to be at the time. I have one of my father's memorial flags, his medals, and 2 volumes of war books. One day, my son came home from school and told me about Anne Frank. I was in disbelief. I never heard of Anne Frank. Then the pieces started to fit, and more pieces fit after my brother Ray Jr. came home from Vietnam. The second story is about my brother, Raymond G. Adams, Jr. Ray Jr. and I attended school together. We were in the same grade until Ray decided to leave home due to the uneasy circumstances living with our father, a World War II veteran. Ray did not graduate with me. Instead, he joined the Army. Ray did 2 tours in Vietnam after boot camp. I was a teenager then and still didn't know too much about war in foreign countries, only the occasional oppression we dealt with at home. Well, Ray came home with what I called a pocket full of Vietnam. Here we go again. By this time, my father was out of the house. It was then me, my mom, and my 3 teenage siblings. We had no idea what life was going to be like when Ray Jr. came home. We loved him and tried to help him as much as we could. It was hard when he did not respond to our help. Slowly, the pocket full of Vietnam was beginning to show its face. We had no idea why Ray was so hostile at times and then withdrawn at other times. He would recon the neighborhood at night, and when he did sleep, the screams were unbearable. We would find Ray fully dressed, huddled under his bed. One night when he was lying asleep, fully dressed on top of the bed, I removed his boots. I caught hell the next day. It wasn't until my sister and I started searching for answers so Ray could get his veteran benefits. Ray filled out a statement in support of claim for service connection for post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. All three of us traveled to Boston. Ray had an appointment with a VA judge where he had to tell his story. Ray told the judge that it was very difficult for him to relive what happened when he spent 40 years trying to forget. I will say it was heart-wrenching for myself, my sister, and Ray. Was this the monster in his pocket that we've been dealing with? But it wasn't in his pocket after all. It was in his head. Dark Secrets of War, a battle that awarded Ray Jr. with the Bronze Star. Many of his fellow comrades were wounded. Many were killed during military operations against a hostile force while in LZ Gator Village, Nuuk Ma. Ray's dates of unit assignment were June 20th, 1969 to November 16th, 1970, in which he received the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with Palm for 2 tours. My stories tell about 2 soldiers in 2 different wars. My father, Ray Sr., and my brother, Ray Jr., came home bearing crosses of those that did not make it home. This Memorial Day, we want to remember and honor those soldiers that gave their lives for our freedom. God bless.
God bless you, Janet. Thank you so much for coming and telling the stories of these 2 brave men. And what a supportive family you were in trying to help and be supportive.
Oh, I am relieved.
You were relieved to share your story.
Yes.
But I appreciate that you're doing that, and think about Memorial Day and its importance in our community and in the world. Ed, thank you so much for handling our technology today, and
Oh, you're welcome.
and have a good day. Thank you again, Janet.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
That wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. We'd like to thank our guest, Janet Smith. The Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube. If you have a story you'd like to share, contact Pleasant View Senior Center Director Erin Kobler by stopping by the center or calling 413-525-5436, extension 1401, or sending an email to erin.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time at Stories from the View.